what books would you recommend to our audience who would want to learn more about proper monetary nature of capitalism?
The Deficit Myth by Stephanie Kelton is a very simple introduction to the capacity of the government to create money. I'd then suggest reading my book, which is actually, you can just see on the screen down here, Can We Avoid Another Financial Crisis? My answer to that was yes. Okay, before the crisis, the answer is pretty much no now, given COVID. But the combination of Stephanie's book and that book of mine will give you an understanding of government money creation and private sector money creation, and then tying the two together. If you want to go deeper still, then as to why I rubbish neoclassical economics, what I've done in Debunking Economics is bring together all the various critiques that have been made for the last century that they continue ignoring, even critiques they create themselves, like the Sonnenschein and Mantel-Debreu conditions. And I can explain those as simply as is possible in words alone in that book. And then if people want to learn what we should do with economics, then there's a book by he was Austrian. His family moved to America during, as like refugees during the Second World War. And then because he couldn't stand American politics, he moved to Australia and became a professor of applied mathematics there. His name is John Blatt, B-L-A-T-T. And that book he wrote a book called Dynamic Economic Systems back in the late 70s, early 80s. And that, in my opinion, is still the best introduction to how economics should be done, as well as what's wrong with the mainstream. That's for people who make a technical read, but I'd highly recommend that collection of books. And then one to round out the whole lot, and that's the original, read Hyman Minsky, Can It Happen Again? And that'll give you an overall perspective. I'll throw in one more book for those who are masochists, and that's Joseph Schumpeter's The Theory of Capitalist Development. Okay. And that again gives you a sort of organic view of capitalism as an evolutionary system.
The day one when I entered the economic faculty here at the university, we were hit by the massive book from Paul Samuelson.
Yeah. Economics. Did you actually got Samuelson's, did you?
Yes. From the beginning.
Oh, you poor bastard. What year was that, if I can ask?
93.
Wow. Okay. Is that Samuelson and Nordhaus in that case?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's an intricately wrong theory promulgated by somebody who I think will ultimately be tried for crimes against humanity.
Okay. So that is probably one of the books from the top list that you would not recommend to follow.
No, definitely. You need an antidote to that damn thing. You don't need to read it. I mean, Paul Samuelson, we see where this all went wrong. Samuelson tried to make Keynes consistent with the neoclassicals, or Walras and Jevons and so on. And in doing it, he bastardized, completely cauterized Keynes, and then had a completely equilibrium vision of how the economy operates, which he then got involved in a debate over in the 1960s, known as the Cambridge controversies, and lost and conceded that he lost the debate and continued to pump out the same garbage in his textbook. He improved it a bit. He wrote some sections on how Marx was better than he realized Marx was, but he never conceded to the students that he'd lost the fight that he conceded with his rivals at Cambridge University, the UK. And I see that as a very mendacious text. My favorite piece of mendacity in the whole thing is in a section he explains how you derive an individual's demand curve, and shows that if you have an individual demand curve and you compensate for price effects, what's called a Hicksian compensated demand curve, it necessarily slopes down. So higher price means lower demand. And he then says, does this apply to the market demand curve? It certainly does. Well, it certainly does if you believe Paul Samuelson in an article in the 50s that there's a benevolent dictator in every capitalist economy who reallocates income before we consume so that everybody's equally happy about the distribution of income. And that was literally the assumption he used to be able to bridge an individual to a market demand curve. It's garbage, and that's why I tell people, don't read the textbooks. Read the original literature and see where this stuff is based, and you'll be horrified.